Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm Tim Regan. I'm the senior editor of Senior Housing News. We have a really good webinar today. I think that it's no secret that senior living operators have had to adapt to myriad labor market shifts in recent years. With the COVID pandemic and everything that came after it, staffing in the industry changed pretty significantly. There are a lot of new challenges, a lot of new opportunities, and we're entering into a period of demand, higher demand for senior living, in which staffing will be very important. So today, we're going to hear how LCS is building high performance teams equipped to meet the demands of the incoming generation and hopefully capture some of the demand of the folks that need and want senior living in the years ahead. So specifically today, we're going to cover strategies for recruitment, retention, talent development, and we're also going to highlight how a close collaboration between LCS HR and their operations helps create a unified approach to all of the different workforce challenges today. So we have four great panelists. Our panelists today are Julina Shaw. Julina is Executive Vice President of Operations and Senior Living Management at LCS. We also have Donna Botker. Donna is Vice President and Director of Human Resources at LCS. We have Annette Jordan, who is Director of Talent Development at LCS. And we also have Bailey Pansy, who is Community, Talent, and HR Director at LCS. So Julina, Donna, Annette, Bailey, welcome. We are so excited to talk with you today. I know we'll have lots of really great things to get to. Just a couple of brief housekeeping items for our audience before we get started. You can collaborate today as we go along. You can ask questions or even make comments in the Q&A window. So you'll see on your screen, the Q&A window is on the right-hand side. Anything that you want to ask or say, put it there, and we'll try to get to that either during or at the end of our presentation. I also want to remind everyone, you can now submit feedback and react live to the things we talk about today with the thumbs up emoji on your main menu bar. So if you want to react, you don't want to say anything, but you want to give us a thumbs up or another reaction, that's how you do that. So without further ado, let's jump into it. I know, Julina, you've got a lot of great information to get us started with, so take it away.
Thank you, Tim, and welcome everyone. We are very excited to spend the next hour with you and look forward to hopefully a very interactive conversation virtually with you. I first wanted to start out to tell you a little bit more about LCS. We're a very unique senior living company in the fact that we are a family of companies with a wealth of history. LCS has been in business for over 50 years. And we have 5 unique companies under the LCS brand. First, Life Care Services is our operating arm of our company. That's where we run all community operations for both communities that we have investments in and third-party management. We also have LCS Development. LCS was actually started as a development company when our founders saw the need to build senior housing for seniors over 50 years ago. We have expanded that. We continue to do ground up development at LCS, and we partner a lot with not-for-profit and other CCRCs for master planning, repositioning, expansions, etc. We have our LCS Real Estate family of companies. We saw the need several years ago to branch from development and management to have investment in communities. So now we have LCS Development that helps provide us with a good balance of ownership plus third-party management. We also have CPS, our Care Purchasing Services company. That is a GPO that is open to all senior living companies. And that way we can go from a single site ownership, portfolio management, and even our communities to maximize buying power and negotiate the best prices possible on goods and services. And then lastly, we have Hexagon, which is an insurance captive that we created so that we can negotiate and get the best insurance possible for workers' comp, auto, GLPL, for all the communities that we manage and operate. So today, now that you know a little bit about LCS, our agenda is quite simple. We hope you walk away with an understanding of the partnership that we have here at LCS between human resources and operations and why that's so important for you and your community. We're going to do this in a conversation style, and we hope you are part of that conversation. So please use your emojis or questions as we go. And then we're going to provide you with considerations and some key takeaways that you can implement at your community. Okay, folks, we know it's coming, the silver wave. It is already started. And many of you probably have this chart or a version of this chart that you talk about on a daily basis. But if you look at this and zoom in on 80-plus-year-olds, you will see from 2023 to 2030, there's going to be an increase of 35% of that population's growth. Now, I've been in senior living for 30 years, and heard about this when I first started, but now it's becoming more and more real. And that's exciting because we get to serve more seniors and provide services, and our demand for our product and services is going to be needed. But it's also the biggest fear. When I'm asked what keeps me up at night, it is, do I have enough team members to take care of the residents that we're here to serve? So hopefully today, that's what you're going to see as one of our focuses on how we're getting those teammates here, because it is coming, and it is coming fast and furious. So, like we said, we're going to talk about aligning on goals and strategies, how we've approached that. And we're going to break down 3 areas that we see are crucial to the human resources area: talent acquisition, talent development, and employee engagement. We're going to start with talent acquisition. And I'm very excited to have my partner, Bailey Pansy, join me for this conversation. And we're just going to jump right in. So, Bailey, what are the key elements of success to the talent acquisition strategy that you've employed here at LCS, especially given the shifting labor market trends?
Well, thank you, Jelena, and welcome, everyone. I'm excited to be with you all today for a little while. And we're certainly starting off with a bang. This is a great question and one that I could talk about for a while. But I would say any successful talent acquisition strategy today truly just requires flexibility in adapting to market trends, because they do change very frequently. Our goal through the whole strategy is to really balance the needs for both the employer and potential job seekers and candidates, which is not an easy task. But I would first kick it off with a couple strategies that we've implemented across our portfolio and seen a great return on. And the first would be employer branding and reputation management. We know that candidates want to work for organizations that not only align with their values, but offer a good culture and provide opportunities for growth. And the branding efforts that we deploy really meet people where they're at to get them the information they need to know about how we utilize those strategies internally. So online platforms like Glassdoor, LinkedIn, Indeed are really there to give candidates greater access to employer reviews, ratings, insights into what it's like at your community or company. So are employees receiving fair treatment? Is your work environment positive? Is career progression a goal of your organization? And how can we showcase that externally? So really engaging our communities in the benefits of a strong employer brand has been very intentional from a strategic perspective here at LCS, but it's also key to remember that your employee experience ultimately becomes your employer brand. So really resonating that with our communities has been impactful.
Hey, Bailey, I hate to interrupt you, but I have to share how impactful it's been to see our communities learn and better understand how to navigate like our reputation management at each individual site. So when they look at their Indeed Glassdoor scores, it's just so incredible for them to have that information and to understand what to do with that information. Looking at their reputation, how a new employee or prospect would, has been super impactful. I like to use that exercise at orientation, and I'm always surprised at the conversation. So that's a really great tip for this group, is just to pull up that score and just have some really great dialogue about it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. The other 2 items that I would kind of throw into the bucket of this question would be a candidate-centric recruitment approach. So I think today candidates have really come to expect a few things when they're looking for a new role. So streamlined, transparent, and engaging recruitment processes are really just a standard now. You are going to be at a loss to find some of the bigger players, whether that's in senior living or not, that don't have those key components to their application process top of mind. But really including things like regular communication, setting clear expectations. For example, do people even know where to go when they arrive at your community for an interview? So it can be small or large in scale. And then, of course, a user-friendly application, mobile-friendly where possible, is where we see the biggest impact. And we'll talk about this a little bit more here in a bit, but we've focused a lot of our strategy to shift to support data-driven recruitment and decisions. So how are we using those analytics and metrics to optimize our process? So sourcing, assessing talent pools, and improving the hiring process quarter after quarter really is critical. As an organization, you should be thinking about tracking things like time to fill, cost per hire, how much is it costing us to receive applications from our various sources. And our goal is consistently improving efficiency across the board.
Yeah, Bailey, and we just got a question, and I think this is a great question from Michael. Do you respond to negative comments by employee who has exited under less than ideal circumstances and feels the need to say something poor towards the community?
I would say yes. I always tell our communities to respond to every review. I think you can respond in the same way to every review, but making sure that they have a line of communication or a direct line of sight to somebody off of the internet that they can communicate these concerns with would ultimately be the goal. So yes, I would say respond to everyone.
I agree. And I know that when you and Donna and I were brainstorming on some of these key elements that we implemented over the years, it's great to have a strategy and it's great to have something, but making sure that what our strategy and goal is what everybody's strategy and goal is, and that they see our vision and they get aligned is the key to making it a success. So why don't you share more about how we accomplish that buy-in?
Yeah, of course, I'd be happy to. I would say in general, it's just really essential to ensure all of our businesses and partners are aligned with strategy. The alignment ensures that not only us as talent acquisition leaders, but anybody throughout the organization understands how hiring the right people contributes to long-term growth, makes us a competitive organization, and also showcases the adaptability of our company. So I would say from my perspective, there's two key components that kind of go hand in hand. And the first is obviously collaborating with leadership. Recruitment leaders or any leaders should really work closely to gain additional insights and understanding into the company's long-term vision, the mission, the goals, and strategic priorities, because obviously we want to be able to contribute to those objectives. But once you kind of have the foundation laid, you understand where we're going and where we're headed, we really should work to incorporate business metrics and hiring metrics into long-term goals for the organization. So from a recruitment and talent acquisition perspective, we should set some KPIs that align with those business directives. So again, quality of hire, employee performance over time, and of course, retention rates, which Donna will dive into a little bit later.
Yeah. I just want to add into, I think when you can help your teams understand how to measure these metrics and the impact of what that means, that's what's going to really help drive the results. If it's just a number and no one understands what that number means or where we're trying to get that number to go, it's not as impactful. So you have to really be helpful with your teams to make sure they really understand what the goal is, how you're going to get there, and what the objective of the goal is, and what success looks like.
And I would add on to that just to say, it's really important that we're continuously evaluating those metrics to understand if they're impactful, if they're making a difference, and if they're achievable. If they're not, it might not necessarily mean that the metric isn't important, but that it might not be aligned to make sense with the business. So we have to do that consistently to make sure that the goals and the numbers that we put forth to our teams make sense across the organization.
Yes. And branding, you mentioned branding several times, Bailey. And I know it's a differentiator for us, and it's what helps us set ourselves apart when we're looking to hire employees. Uh, we are a lot alike in senior living because we have a lot of the same goals, and setting yourself apart when you're trying to compete for that person is so powerful. So, why don't you share some more about how branding plays such a key role in our talent acquisition strategy?
Sure, definitely. This is a topic I'm super passionate about. And really, I think that is because 5 years ago, a lot of our communities were not incorporating this strategy. So it's not necessarily something that you are left behind with if you haven't started, but it's one that's super impactful to jump on if you haven't. So I would encourage you to consider or look at employer branding kind of like the nucleus of your talent acquisition strategy. It directly influences your ability to attract, engage, and ultimately retain people. But the goal is to create a perception of your company, right? So you want people to see your organization as a desirable place to work. You want to showcase the meaningful work that you do. Obviously, you want to showcase the residents that we serve and the opportunities for growth within the industry. But a fun fact that I learned last month is according to Indeed, 2/3 of people agree with the statement that says, work significantly describes who I am as a person. Donna, Jelena, and Annette, have you guys heard that before?
I had not heard that before until you told me, but it does make sense. And I think especially those that we attract to our communities, it does resonate with them.
Definitely. And the way you connect with people on that personal level is through branding. So throughout our portfolio and at LCS, we have seen a couple different ways really expand what branding can do for our communities. And the first is obviously attracting the right talent. We do that in a couple different ways. Brand visibility and perception is the goal, which we know. But branding shapes how your company is viewed externally in the marketplace. It also identifies your reputation in the industry and helps differentiate you from your competitors. There's a lot of senior living communities who have not gone forth or moved forward with some of the branding efforts across the board. And so that alone kind of differentiates you from organizations that have no branding out there. So if you go on Indeed, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, you can kind of identify certain communities or organizations that have moved the needle in that aspect, and you can see ones that haven't. And a lot of the tools to do so are free. So it's just engaging with some of that content and making your brand stand out from others. A strong brand not only attracts active job seekers, but also engages those passive people, which we know that we need in order to keep our applicant pipelines full. So those people who are not looking are really the target audience for a lot of our branding efforts. And then on the flip side, once you've identified that brand and you've crafted, your employer brand, you're able to connect with specific segments of talent pools, whether they indicate that they're interested in things like innovation or work-life balance or social responsibility. Branding really helps position your company to present and appeal to the right type of talent at the right time. And ultimately, in a competitive market, we're all just trying to differentiate ourselves. Identifying a brand that's authentic and aligned with your values, but also is focused on the what's in it for the employee, career growth and well-being is really the strategy that has proven time and time again to be impactful for our many different brands under the LCS umbrella.
Absolutely, Brandy and Bailey. And, Tara put a comment in there about it's one thing to get enough people to take care of our residents, but what are we doing to make sure that we get the right people? And it starts with the branding when we're recruiting. We're putting out there, this is the type of employee we want. And you're going to hear more, Tara, as we go through here on how we engage them in the right way and how we develop them to ensure that we do have the right people focused on achieving our goal. I want to switch now to technology, and there's a lot of emerging trends in technology and the way that we go about attracting folks. So let's tell a little bit more, Bailey, on how we've used some emerging technologies in our talent acquisition process.
Yeah, of course. I feel like this is the year of AI. We're constantly talking about AI and how its capabilities impact job functions. Recruitment is no exception to that. I would say AI, data analytics, and automation are really the three areas that play a crucial role in streamlining TA best practices. So So by leveraging these tools, my team has really worked to improve efficiencies and support a lot of those data-driven decisions. A few examples are some ways that we use AI or some of the automation on a daily basis. I would really include passive candidate pools. So if we're looking at resume parsing or sourcing, AI tools are there to quickly review skill sets, resumes, candidates, and match us as the employer with a fit based on job description, resume history. And that saves a significant amount of time for those people who are dedicated to recruitment. And then on the flip side, there has been a lot of work done on the candidate matching algorithm piece, where AI is able to analyze a large pool of candidates in a short amount of time and automatically match them to jobs based on their interests. Their criteria that they may indicate is kind of a deal breaker for them. So skills, their experience, things that they bring to the table. But this helps identifying both active and passive people who may not have applied, but would be a strong fit for our organization based on their background. So those are kind of two recruitment strategies that we utilize very frequently, and they always kind of filter into the data decision making. Recruitment analytics and tools, so those time to fill, cost per hire, source effectiveness data points are super impactful to our operations leaders. By analyzing a lot of this data, we can make more informed decisions on where we need to focus, where we should be advertising our jobs, if our ad spend is correct, and really what yields the best return on investment for the jobs that we need to fill. So like I mentioned, technology, AI, automation, it really is transforming the way we are hiring people. The human component remains to be critical and crucial as far as talent acquisition goes, but it really is it allows us to be more innovative in our hiring processes and focus on some of those more strategic tasks and human connection, aside from some of those more administrative day-to-day tasks that we can lean on technology for.
Absolutely. And you guys know one of my mottos is work smarter, not harder. And AI is fascinating on all the things that it can do with us, and data driving us to asking the right questions instead of searching through things. So thank you, Bailey. That was great. I want to shift now to talent development. So we do all this work, as you can tell, to make sure that we're getting the right talent in and enough of them. And what we want to do then is continue to grow that talent and continue to develop that talent. And Annette Jordan, our Director of Talent Development, is here. And Annette, I'd just like to start first with you describing the philosophy towards talent development that you have.
Thank you, G, and hello, everyone. It is indeed exciting to be a part of this conversation because a partnership truly does exist here at LCS between all of our areas. You know, at LCS, our talent development strategy or philosophy is that effective employee development really begins with standardized onboarding. Standardized onboarding for consistency and effective level setting. It's important that all of our employees have the same understanding as it relates to our organization, our history, kind of their place in it. To that end, then we offer a multitude of development opportunities that offer employees self-learning options, cohorts and other programming, and a combination sometimes of online, for instance, versus in-person. To do this, we partner with relevant talent development vendors and partners to offer the most meaningful development offerings and experiences. Now, to further that thought, though, we believe that to optimize the success in the talent development arena, we cannot create training in a vacuum. You know, our team consistently looks forward to developing the people that Bailey and her team bring in. And then our talent development professionals listen intently to the needs of our operations leaders and human resources partners to help identify and develop meaningful training opportunities. We research consistently and often research industry best practices and relevant information to create training opportunities that are really going to promote successful outcomes. And so for us, it's really about, you know, once they come into the organization, one of the things that's critically important, according to contemporary research, is the reality that people want to be developed. They want to be developed specifically with transferable skills. So we consistently, to use that word again, have our ear toward creating training that helps to meet that need.
that we've implemented.
So while we are, some of the things that some of the ways that we utilize to develop our employees effectively is we use multiple methods, and these include three. I'll actually share three that we use rather regularly. So an effective employee development strategy begins with, I mentioned, that consistent onboarding, but we also want to make sure that the development program presents information from a online a methodology or delivery method, because we want to make sure that employees have choice as it relates to development whenever that makes sense. And so we seek to make sure that we partner then with vendors who can really help us to meet that need. We also do leadership training programs, because we believe that, effective employee development really starts with a focus on making sure that we do not take for granted the impact that effective leadership development has on things such as employee engagement or retention. So we really focus on developing those people leaders to make sure that they know the role that they play and the impact that they have on our team members. Additionally, we look to do that standardization piece to make sure everybody has sort of the same or similar marching orders, if you will, as it relates to what's important, what differentiates LCS from others in the market. And then we try to figure out ways to make sure that there are connections. We believe we're in the relationship business. And so what are those collaborative opportunities? What are those networking opportunities that we can add as part of a learning or development experience that's really going to impact the learning and, again, create that meaningful experience?
Yeah, it's been, oh, sorry, go ahead, Donna.
Yeah. Hey, and I was just going to talk about a little bit, we talked earlier in Bailey's piece about the importance of data and really showcasing if things are working or not working. And when you talked about that leadership development training, what's been really cool and helpful, I think that might be helpful to this group, is we always circle back to see if it's working or if it's successful. And we know it's successful because we recognize that our retention numbers for the group that go through this training have been higher than the people who have not gone through this training. So it's just really important that, we're not just saying it's working because we feel good about it, but we really do have the data to showcase that it is working. And we're also talking to our partners about, is it going well? Is it not going well? What do you need from us? How do we tweak it? So just those real-time things help to make these programs a success as we continue to develop them.
That's absolutely right, Donna. And to what you just mentioned in terms of the evaluative piece, to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our business units, of our team members in our communities, we consistently, as you said, we look for that feedback, and we reserve the right to then make edits and updates, because just because a program has been created doesn't mean it's going to be static, right? We look to create meaningful training opportunities, and that means sometimes making those edits or those updates so that it's best received by our business partners.
Exactly. And I want to applaud you both for that. And we have onboarded employees. We always onboard employees, but taking that look to the standardized onboarding piece that's unique to LCS has really made a difference, because when you are managing one community, 3 communities, or 100 communities, there are key things that you want to get across for the brand and the culture. And then there's position specific training. So it's made a difference. And then that training after the onboarding that you talked about and the retention, to continue that investment in how to be a better manager and a better leader. It's truly made a difference to our executive directors and the department heads in the field. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I talked about a little bit about that, but there are other key factors that we have to take into account to make sure that development strategy is successful. So why don't you tell us a few key factors that we've seen?
Absolutely, G. Happy to do that. In fact, I've identified three factors that, when combined, work really, really well to support successful employee development. And so the first would be relevance. You know, adult learning theory dictates that adults really typically seem to learn best when the information is something that they need to know and they can use right away. So if we can make sure that our training is timely and relevant to their needs, that's going to bode well for our talent development offerings. We seek to ensure content is then also delivered in addition to being timely, is including content, as I mentioned before, about making edits and tweaks to development offerings. We want to make sure we continue to do that. So there are several communications that happen. In fact, Donna mentioned the back and forth that can happen between our operations leaders and our talent development team. And that does not stop. That is an ongoing part of the process. We also do communications consistently with our direct community leaders. So we consistently talk with our executive directors and we talk with our administrators to make sure that we are doing what they need done. We recognize that the talent development function really exists to support the business. And so we want to make sure that those lines of communication are consistent and that they're open and that we're listening and making the adjustments that we need to make. So that first piece of relevance is absolutely real. Then there's that focus on leadership. I mentioned before the importance of, we can't take for granted the impact that an effective leader can have on their team members. And so effective learning, content development, and delivery can often depend on the needs of the community team members. So trying to meet people where they are as a part of what we do. It's important that we recognize that not everybody needs every piece of skill development. And so to the extent that we can, we look to try to tailor some things. And I would want to mention a little later here the importance of maybe doing some development planning as part of what we do. But between relevance and a focus on leadership, there's also this piece of being flexible. We recognize that our community team members and leaders are balancing several different tasks, initiatives, needs, all at the same time. So making sure that our offerings provide flexibility is important. So what we do is we try to consider both the how and the when we deliver our training. So we often flex our delivery methods to include, when possible, of course, to include in-person delivery and opportunities, online, as well as maybe a hybrid of both, where it's possible to do that. So we also utilize technology. It's a very important component and ongoing consideration. Bailey mentioned the use of AI as it relates to talent acquisition, and we use AI as it relates sometimes to content to enhance our delivery for our trainings. We're also very flexible in terms of the timing, as I mentioned, and when that training is available. So we work very closely with our community leaders to make sure that when we offer something, that it's at the most optimal time to not only encourage participation, but ultimately success and implementation of the learning.
Yeah, Annette, it's a few things I want to highlight here, and then we've got another question in here that I'm going to throw at you. But I love the fact that you acknowledge that we tweak it. And we start out with a plan. We saw a need to provide leadership training at a community level outside of the executive director and to the department heads. And then we did our first class. We got the feedback, and we continue to evolve that and go with the needs and go from what people need. And that is, that just takes investment and time, being flexible on whether we do it in person, how many we do remote, et cetera. And those are all important. And we don't have time to go into all the details and statistics, of course, but Michael wanted to hear just a little bit more about, is it a standard program or did we develop it in-house?
Michael, I appreciate your question, and thank you, G, for turning this one my direction. Absolutely, what we've done is develop our training in-house because we, there's some great probably programs out there that are standardized, that are offered via vendors. But what we found is we want to create training that has that LCS spin on it, because that speaks more not only to the organization and the importance of who we are and making sure our team members understand that, but it also enables us to really tweak the learning so that it really focuses on those things that we want our leaders and team members to focus on. So rather than just adopt a program that's off the shelf. We take the needs of the business, the operations areas, our communities, we take their needs under consideration, and we develop our training in-house. And again, it's not just a one and done. We develop it based on multiple conversations, but then we go back and make sure we have those conversations around evaluation of the training, implementation of the training, and making sure that we have the best available information and content so that our people can be successful.
All right, thank you. So, I mean, that's a lot. And I love how, like we said, we have continued to partner on the feedback and adapt. So, are there additional items that people should consider outside of what we've talked about to make talent development more successful?
Absolutely, G. And we recognize again the importance of transferable skills. People want to be developed, and many are actively seeking development opportunities. So we have several keys to success that I believe truly differentiate us as talent development professionals, and then ultimately as LCS. The first is partnership. It truly has to be a partnership between the talent development professionals and then our operations leaders, specifically then our directors of operation management, as well as our executive directors and other leaders within the communities. So we want to make sure that we're having those conversations. Sometimes we send surveys to make sure that we get the information that we need and we can collect it and report on it. But we want to make sure that that partnership exists. We work with our HR directors, both in the communities as well as our regional partners, because we want to make sure that we're hearing from the people who actually are closest to the needs. To make sure that we can meet those needs. So whether the training is in person, online, via a webinar, we want to make sure that what we develop is important and is not only something that people can learn from, but is easy to take and then implement, that they can implement it right away, that the learning is actionable. So that partnership is the first piece. I mentioned earlier something about development planning, and that's the reality that, you know, sometimes you just got to meet people where they are, and their needs might be very individual. So we incorporate development plans wherever possible to promote that idea that learning and development is not a one and done, but it's a process, and that we are investing in you. So these development plans also provide a blueprint, if you will, for development to assist the learner in understanding the why for their development. You know, sometimes people, let's face it, are a little hesitant to come to a learning and development opportunity. So we want to help make sure they understand the why and then the how that development can positively impact or affect their role, as well as any step-by-step additional learnings. You know, why am I doing this? Why are you asking me to take this course? But sharing that information so that they better understand kind of the why. So those development plans are an important piece. And then finally, and I think I've kind of alluded to it a little bit, but that tailored approach. With our offerings here at LCS, we work to meet learners, again, where they are, but we want to make sure that their current knowledge base is that everybody has sort of that same level set of knowledge, but then how do we build upon that? Because maybe somebody needs a little more of this and someone else needs a little more of that in terms of learning and development. So how can we make sure that the approach that we have for learning, and this could be individual or community by community. One community might be able to do in person a little bit easier. Another might prefer a webinar. So how can we make sure that we tailor our offerings to meet the needs of individuals as well as our communities?
Really
Can I
quick
add
in it
something
too.
there?
Oh yeah. Really quick, Bailey, before you add in, I just wanted to say this whole house approach, you know, and we're customizing these development plans, we're getting the feedback. It really allows like everyone to be involved in that learning and development process versus us just throwing it out and hoping it happens. You know, it's really making sure that it's a team effort and that it's appreciated and utilized by all. And then you have the follow-up available because you've got everybody involved.
Yes, that's absolutely right, Donna. And I cannot speak enough to that follow-up piece because it's almost sometimes feels like a race to the finish to get the training developed, right? And to get it out there and to implement it and have people attend those sessions. But it's something else to then follow up to make sure that the training was actually helpful, beneficial, that people were able to utilize it. So it's an important, critical part of the process.
I would just add in there, one thing you didn't, give yourself enough credit for, Annette, was the philosophy that I think you all have created around training, and whether that's a leadership training or something else, at all levels of our organization, top down, it's very likely that I've taken a training that Jelena's also taking, that Donna's already taken, and you may be involved in it in different ways. Like you may provide feedback on somebody going through something that you then may do 2 years later. So I just feel like there's a lot of hype and excitement around the training that you all have created, and that's whether it's the home office or the communities.
I appreciate that feedback, Bailey. You know, we at LCS make such a significant investment in the development of our people, and it's something that we don't take for granted. We think that it's critically important that once we take the time, energy, and effort to get the right people into our organization, you know, through all of the branding and the talent acquisition work that you do, it really is to our benefit as an organization then to develop them effectively so that they can be the best that they can be here at LCS, and so that we create opportunities for them to be successful, to give them the tools and the resources that they need to be effective people leaders and team members. Being in the relationship business, which we sometimes say that we are, it's important that we create relationships around not just the partnership of those of us on this call, but the partnership around team members working with their leaders and people cross-functionally. And that can happen in a lot of our learning events. So Bailey, thank you. Thank you for recognizing that top-down approach, because it absolutely exists here at LCS.
Yes, I can attest to that. And I have been fortunate enough to go through, like you said, the trainings, Bailey, that you and Donna and our executive directors and other people have been through. And no matter how many trainings and development courses I've been through over the course of my career, it depends on where I'm at in my leadership journey as to what I get out of it. And I have the privilege to speak at new hire orientation, as well as some of our training classes. And every time I thank everyone for taking time apart to invest in themselves. And if they're investing in themselves and they're learning and growing, then they're going to be able to pay it forward to the rest of the team. So it is a resource intensive effort, both on people capital and some financial capital, but it does pay dividends when you grow your team and keep them there. And it's one of the key things that leads to higher employee engagement, which is a great transition. And employee engagement is, I think, like the most important thing that we have and the most important thing that we measure. And Donna and I are definitely aligned on this, on that being a key metric. We all have so many KPIs, but employee engagement is a key metric. And happy that Donna is here to talk about that, because whether it's the beginning, middle, and throughout the career, employee engagement is key. So, Donna, why is it so important? We agree it, but why is it so important that employee engagement and HR are aligned with operations on this?
Well, my microphone wouldn't get unmuted. So thanks, Jelena. That's a really great question. You know, when you and I have a lot of discussions around this, and what's important is align. And so we know from just our discussions and just whole house discussions that culture, engagement, and retention cannot be a priority for just one team. It's got to be an all hands on deck approach. And I think really one of the reasons we've seen the success of this is because we do have support from all levels of the organization, that we do want an engaged culture. We want to create rich experiences, and we spend a lot of time working on how we're going to get that outcome. We strategize on it, we brainstorm on it, we get feedback on it. In fact, as a company, this is one of our high level imperatives. So again, it's going to be and needs to be important for any level of the organization from top down. We measure the success of that in a variety of ways. You know, we measure turnover, we measure retention, we measure engagement, talent management. I mean, there's like a KPI for anything under the sun that you want to measure. But we really try to look at everything from a whole house perspective, because that's going to tell you the whole story of what's going on at every single community versus just one metric. And then we use that whole story to determine our gaps, our strategy, and then even celebrate those successes.
You know, Donna, you mentioned, and I love this, several metrics that you monitor, and talent development monitors many of the same ones, right? Like employee engagement and turnover, you mentioned retention, now, all of which are important. But from your seat, Donna, I'm curious, is there one that you would prioritize over the rest?
Yeah, great question. I would say no. I mean, I think they all tell their own story and they give you additional layers. But if you're from a smaller organization and maybe you don't have the resources to pull together all of these metrics, I would take the one that's easiest to measure and start there and start to have conversations around that, and then layer in additional data that you may have to continue to tell that story. But I mean, I think the easiest one that most people measure is probably turnover or that retention, and that tells you a lot. But then from there, because it's really just a number, you got to dial it in, you got to have some discussions around what's happening, you have to do some additional research. But when you do that, you can start to begin to strategize and start to work with your team to figure out what those next steps are to get to that next level. Great question.
Okay. Well, partnership, alignment, we talked about that at the beginning of the webinar, if that's a goal. And we've talked about how we partner with recruiting and talent development, but then engagement, how we go through there, and the why it's so important, but the how is even more important, Donna. And so why don't you share how we have ensured success through our partnership?
Yeah, I think you heard probably in my last, on our last slide we talked about, and I'm very passionate about this stuff, but retention's really important to us in an organization. And once we find those right people to hire, we want to make sure that they continue their journey with us. And we recognize that our residents' lives are even more enhanced when we have staff that love what they do, recognize the purpose, and how they can just bring their best self to work every day. So because of that, we really focus a lot on the why. Why is what we do is important? How does it affect the bottom line? How does it have a larger impact? How does their role fit within to the organization so they're just not showing up at work every day? We recently rolled out a red carpet manual to help us create and help our communities create experiences. We don't want people to just check boxes. We want them to create experiences because they're excited about doing that and they're excited about what that means. So with the rollout of these ideas and the strategies, we also have to have accountability in place. And that's where we see the biggest partnership between kind of all levels of the organization, and specifically with operations, is just to make sure that what we're all saying is important becomes and keeps important because of that accountability factor. So operations support, they value the red carpet experience, and then we all get to work collaboratively to just ensure that it's carried out effectively.
Yeah, and Donna, I want to brag a little bit on your team here and what you guys have done. Take the red carpet experience. It's one thing to say you need to deliver a red carpet experience, and here are the things that you can consider doing that. Your team made an interactive book with links that's here's where I go to order supplies for this. Here's where I go to have a sample calendar of things to do to pick from, because our teams are busy. They're busy, and if they have to create what their vision of a red carpet experience is, it's just really hard. So making it easy, giving tools that are easy for a community to pick and choose so they can customize it to their community and put their feel on, but the work is done for them on the tools and the processes. So thank you for thinking through that how to do a little better. Okay, yeah. Turnover. We keep talking about turnover, and turnover reduction definitely is a key to a highly engaged community. We don't get to measure employee engagement as frequently as we do turnover. So we do focus, like you said, on turnover reduction, and that's one of the most important metrics that we do look at. Why don't you share some of the successes that we've had to turnover reduction?
Yeah, thanks, Jelena. So turnover reduction has been really successful when we guarantee that we're working hard to create an atmosphere where our teams are connected to the why and they feel like they make a difference every day. What's really interesting about trying to reduce your turnover is you can't just set it and forget it. You've really got to be present every single day. So you've got to have leadership that walks around and connects with people. You've got to have leadership who connects with your residents. You have to have your residents and your employees engaged in the same things. So that relationship piece becomes really the most important piece of turnover reduction. But aside from that, we like performance review. So letting people know that they're appreciated, where they stand in their performance. We do stay interviews to get real-time feedback on what's working for them, what's not working for them, so that we can remove those obstacles on a real-time basis. We also, like I talked about, earlier, we create those onboarding experiences. So really what it comes down to is turnover reduction and engagement happens when we focus on it every single day. We need leaders to be present, active. We also want to, again, like Annette said earlier, have those opportunities for people to grow and develop. So if we're creating opportunities where people can, again, bring their best selves to work, focus on their development, and that doesn't always mean promotional opportunities. That might mean you have someone who wants to become a better version of themselves. So how do we create opportunities for them to do that? Or it could be promotional opportunities. So are we transparent on how do those exist? How does someone get to that next level? And then creating those opportunities for them to do that. So we want to make sure, again, and I've said this a couple times now, but people have those opportunity to bring their best self to work, because when they do that and they have that opportunity, it's easier to leave their baggage at the door versus bringing it in with them, so it's meeting those essentials where we can.
And I would add on to that. I think each of us spoke a little bit and sprinkled in the why. We're all fortunate enough to be able to work in an industry where the why is kind of easy. But making sure that is front and center, and we're all here to take care of the residents within our communities, I think really serves our function, time and time again, whether that's recruitment or talent development or HR as a whole. Connecting people to the why and to the mission of senior living is really an impactful strategy. And I think each of us have mentioned that.
Yeah. And Bailey, I'll just add to, sorry, Jelena, it doesn't have to be complex. So a lot of these things you don't have to have huge resources for. Just start small and you can have great impact by just being present and creating tools for the team that you do have, so it doesn't have to be a complex situation.
Absolutely, because it all comes down to, we are a people serving people business. Bailey, you said it best with, it's just about why we come to work, and we come to work to serve our residents. And we did have a comment earlier in the chat about how do we make sure that we get the right people, and what's our sticky, and what's our thing on that. And there's lots of ways that we do that, but the most important is when we're interviewing for the why, and then as we're developing, it's towards that person, and then our engagement. Feedback. Our president always says feedback is a gift and every day should be Christmas. We're constantly seeking feedback. You can't always act on the feedback that you get, but you do acknowledge it. Bailey said it, you get feedback. If it's bad on Glassdoor, you acknowledge it. If you get feedback from anything else, you acknowledge it. And then you always turn it back to the why. And our why is creating purposeful living filled with rich experiences for our residents. And so we look for people that are looking for that. We continue to tie that back to there. We start with their onboarding. As Annette said at the beginning, that is a why. When we do our employee engagement, we always bring it back to that. We have, when we do a new initiative or a high level imperative, we always tie it back to the why on what it's getting there. So definitely all of these strategies, you have to be aligned that way and get back to ultimately what are we doing, and that's we're serving the residents. Okay, wow, the time has really flown by. That's all the prepared slides that we had for you, and this kind of brings us to the end of that piece. We've covered a lot. but I want to have a few key takeaways for you to have. And first and foremost, you need to align. You need to align your different departments, and whether it's HR or any department, be aligned on what goals you're trying to do and when you're going to achieve them. So the communities can only take on so much at once. So where are you going to start? Like Donna said, where are you going to start? Start small and go from there, but be aligned on that. Focus on your brand and messaging. What does your community say about you? What are you doing to attract the people that fit your community profile the best? Invest in team development. No matter what that looks like, invest in it somewhere, start somewhere. Trust data. Data will tell you a story. People are the most important asset, no doubt about it. Data is your second most important asset. It's going to help guide you into making the best decisions possible and asking the right questions. And lastly, understanding your why. Why, and make sure that everyone understands the why and the importance of their role. So with those key takeaways, we've answered several questions, but I know we didn't get to them all. In the time that we have left, we're happy to answer some more questions, and LCS is grateful to serve the seniors that we do, and we're grateful to partner with all of you, and look forward to you reaching out to us in the future. Tim, I guess we'll turn it back to you.
Yes, thanks, Jelena. What a good presentation today. We got a lot of questions coming in, which is great. Want to remind our audience, if you have any questions here in the last 4 minutes, we can probably only get to 1 or 2, but if you have any burning questions left, send them in. We'll try to get to them. I actually have a question. Jelena, you were mentioning the why, and I know that you're hiring people that can come to the table and articulate their why. But I also know that, sometimes you have to help employees understand their why. So can you talk about some of the ways that LCS helps employees understand their why?
Yeah. So a lot of folks in our business, they may come to us just because they loved their grandparents, right? And they're thinking, I just want to work with my grandparents every day, or I didn't have a grandparent and I think this would be great, or et cetera. So you can start to build on that. But the most important ways is in your orientation. And you need to get some of your key team members that are part of your culture committee. If you have a culture committee, leverage those people. Leverage your department heads where they are talking daily and at the beginning of that journey with why they're there every day. The stay interviews. Donna talked about a stay interview, and a lot of folks don't do that. I'd never done that before. But when you sit and ask, Tim, why do you still work here? They're going to tell you their why too. And it is always going to come back to the things that they hear over and over again. So we show our mission, we show our company's history, we talk about why we're in it and our mission statement, and then we live that out through all the things, and then just reiterating. And you just can't talk about it at the beginning. You've got to live it every day.
We had a couple other questions about AI during our discussion. I want to sort of mush two questions together here, smush two questions together. One is there was a question asker who was curious if LCS is utilizing AI as it pertains to brand standards, tolerances, wayfinding within your communities. I personally know AI and data have been focuses of LCS. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but hopefully you can expand on that. And then the other question was there was concern about using AI in talent management of bias. Do you have that same concern? So it sounds like basically were a couple questions about AI, how LCS uses it, maybe any challenges in there. So with that, yeah, any response?
Okay, wow, there's a lot in there. So, okay, Annette, why don't you speak to the talent management piece? Was that where you were about to speak up?
It was me, but Annette can do.
Okay, Bailey, please.
Yeah. So I would say the brand standards, I think that was in relation to maybe some employer branding. And as a whole, LCS as a company, yes, we have all of those assets, but we're also fortunate enough to partner with a lot of communities who their own independent brands are really important. So we work with them to establish their brand standards, and they usually have that available. So that way we can, plug and play depending upon the strategy. And then I think the question was also in relation to bias, and I'll speak to it on the recruitment front, but that's why it's so crucial to not let AI replace the human piece of recruitment, is because that's where that component is deployed the most, is when you're talking human to human, and you can't let the AI completely overtake most recruitment functions. So there's so much conversation around that right now, but that was my initial take.
Great. Well, it is noon my time, so that unfortunately is all the time we have for this webinar, but I have no doubt that we could continue on for another hour about all the things we talked about today. So I want to thank you all, Jelena, Donna, Annette, and Bailey, for a great presentation. And of course, thank you everyone who tuned in. That concludes our webinar, and we will see you again shortly. So thank you again, everyone, and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.